Nowadays, we often find ourselves in debates and arguments online, whether it be on a Twitter comment section, a group chat of some sort, or a voice chat argument in a video game. All of these online debates share the same principle that we are spending a lot of time online arguing with total strangers about topics we want to defend. Now, as usual, it's necessary to preface this. I am not saying to not defend your values or beliefs, and I'm not saying to avoid talking to anyone online about anything important. This is also not really about politics either. I'm talking here about debates about anything. And I'm hoping to share some research and my experience on how this can become problematic for your well being. And with that information, you can simply become more mindful of what you are doing online and hopefully better guide yourself to improve your well being while still caring about the things that you care about. So, first things first, I find that arguing online and debating online, especially on social media, makes people annoyed, angry, irritated, etc. And research shows that when people see these angry arguments or debates online, they frequently overestimate how aggressive or hostile people are, which is stressful and not great for well being. This study right here shows. We find that observers systematically overperceive moral outrage in authors, inferring more intense moral outrage experiences from messages than the authors of those messages actually reported. So, the author of the message wasn't really trying to be aggressive, but people often overperceive how aggressive they were. In addition to this, people, at least in America, tend to overestimate how often these types of debates happen. And when they overestimate the frequency of these debates, they tend to have less hope for the future of America. So the environment of the internet and social networks makes people essentially have less optimism about the future, which is also not great for well-being. This isn't just me saying this. This isn't just some random connection I made. This study right here explains what I'm talking about. The text says, this misprediction may be psychologically costly. Overestimating how often Americans debate strangers online significantly predicted greater hopelessness in the future of America. Together, our findings suggest that Americans may experience a false reality about the landscape of debate, which can unnecessarily undermine their hope about the future. And social media is also not the best for promoting fruitful or positive discussions, as seen here. In this study, it shows rather than bringing people together for discussion, social media kind of does the opposite. The text says, our findings first find support for the idea that social media news use directly activates citizens' uncivil discussions and unfriending, while uncivil political discussion directly triggers unfriending behavior and significantly contributes to intensify the effect of social media news use over citizens' unfriending levels. And I think we kind of understand this, that social media is not exactly the best place to have a nice and positive and peaceful discussion, right? The good news is that there are people out there trying to make this better for social media. These researchers at the University of Washington are actively searching for ways to make online arguments more productive and more positive, with the main method being humanizing people and allowing everyone to have a voice, which is something they call democratizing. And from my own personal experience, these online debates, as well as many debates in person with friends or whoever, are fruitless for the most part. And that's not to say that debate is inherently fruitless, because of course it's not, but rather that it's usually done in a way that does more harm than good. Too often in the past, I've entered debate with the intent of changing the other's views, and this also meant I would take debate too seriously and too personally. But really, it was much better for my well-being when I instead focused on sharing my views and listening earnestly to the other's views. And the debate didn't really go past that. Just share and then listen. And of course, many times we can go into the nitty-gritty of things, but if it starts to lead to heated arguments and attacks on the other person, then think if that's really doing good for you or for the other person. In my case, it was usually doing harm and not good to get too into debates and to get too excited or heated or irritated by the discussion. Your values and your actions will do a lot of speaking for themselves, and it's not always necessary to ruthlessly defend them. And to be honest, who is really going to change their mind because you debated them? They may admit defeat in rare cases, but even then they can still rightfully hold reservations to their beliefs. And people will ultimately need to make their own choices and decisions, and it's not going to do any good to force a win in a debate, especially online when you can do it all behind a screen and then walk away as if you didn't just shout 1,000 words at a random person. So as you debate online and as you argue about things that you care about, be mindful as to whether or not it's helping anyone, and if it's doing harm, think if it's worth it to continue. I cannot speak for others and say what they should discuss and what they should not discuss, but I think it is valuable to discern whether these discussions are accomplishing what you really want to accomplish or not, and if they are good for the well-being of all parties involved. And as always, stay mindful.